Hello! In this tutorial, I am going to talk about wind load in Eurocode. Section 3, Modeling of wind actions. The nature, representations of wind actions, classification of wind actions, characteristic values, and models. Section 4, Wind velocity and velocity pressure, basis for calculation, basic values. The basic wind velocity shall be calculated from expression 4.1. This expression, VB equals C direction times C season times VB0. VB is the basic wind velocity defined as a function of wind direction and time of year at 10 meters above ground of terrain category 2. VB0 is the fundamental value of the basic wind velocity, C1p. C direction is the directional factor, C02, and C season is the season factor, C03. Note 2. The value of directional factor, C direction, for various wind directions may be found in the national annex. The recommended value is 1. The same thing for C season may be given in the national annex. The recommended value is 1. So VB equal 1 times VB0, so you can take VB equal VB0. Variation with height. VMZ equals CRZ times COZ times VB, where CRZ is the roughness factor given in 4.3.2. COZ is the orography factor taken as 1 unless otherwise specified in 4.3.3. And note 1, if the orography is accounted for in the basic wind velocity, the recommended value is 1 for CO. Terrain roughness. CRZ equal KR times ln Z divided by Z0, for Z is between Z max and Z minimum, and CRZ equals CRZ minimum, for Z is less than Z minimum. Z0 is the roughness length, and KR terrain factor depending on the roughness length Z0 calculated using KR equals 0.19 times Z0 divided by Z02 exponent 0.07, where Z02 equals 0.05 terrain category 2 table 4.1. Z minimum is the minimum height defined in table 4.1. Z max is to be taken as 200 meters, and this is the table 4.1 terrain categories and terrain parameters. Terrain categories Z0 meter and Z minimum. 0, sea or coastal area exposed to the open sea, Z0 0.003 and Z minimum 1. 1, lakes or flat and horizontal area with negligible vegetation and without obstacles, Z0 equals 0.01 and Z minimum equal 1. 2, area with low vegetation such as grass and isolated obstacles, 0.05 Z0 and Z minimum equal 2. 3, area with regular cover of vegetation or buildings or with isolated obstacles with separation of maximum 20 obstacle heights, Z0 equals 0.3 and Z minimum equal 5. And finally 4, area in which at least 15% of the surface is covered with buildings and their average height exceed 15 meters, Z0 equal 1 and Z minimum equal 10. 4.4 Wind turbulence. The turbulence intensity IVZ at height Z is defined as the standard deviation of the turbulence divided by the mean wind velocity. The recommended rules for the determination of IVZ are given in expression 4.7. IVZ equal K divided by COZ ln Z divided by Z0 for Z between Z max and Z minimum, and IVZ equal IVZ minimum for Z is less than Z minimum. Where K is a turbulence factor, the value of K may be given in the national annex. The recommended value for K is 1. CO is the orography factor as described in 4.3.3, and Z0 is the roughness length given in table 4.1. The peak velocity pressure QPZ equal 1.7 times IVZ times 1 times rho Vm squared divided by 2. Rho is the air density, which depends on the altitude. CEZ is the exposure given in expression 4.9, this expression, and the QB is the basic velocity pressure given in expression 4.10, this expression, 1 times rho times VB squared divided by 2, and the recommended value for rho is 1.25. 5.2 Wind pressure on surfaces. The wind pressure acting on the external surfaces WE should be obtained from expression 5.1. WE equal QPZE times CPE, where QPZE is the peak velocity pressure, ZE is the reference height for the external pressure given in section 7, and CPE is the pressure coefficient for the external pressure C section 7. And the QPZ is defined in 4.5. WI equal QPZI times CPI, where QPZI is the peak velocity pressure, the same, ZI is the reference height, section 7, and CPI is the pressure coefficient in section 7. There are two cases for pressure, positive and negative. You can see here is positive in case A, positive internal pressure, and here is negative. So this is the direction of wind. It's positive, negative, 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 and here is positive. But in case B is negative. Okay, you can see case 1 and case B. For CPE, this is the plan. D and B. Dimensions, direction of wind, D and E. Okay, E equal B or 2H, whichever is smaller. So the minimum of B and 2H. B crosswind dimension. If the elevation for E is less than D, so A, B, and C. E, D minus E, 4 divided by 5E, A, B, C. 3 areas. Elevation for E is greater than D, A and B. D, E divided by 5, D minus E divided by 5. So A and B. And if the elevation for E is greater than 5D, only A, DH, and only A here. The values of CPE10 and CPE1 may be given in the national annex. The recommended values are given in table 7.1, depending on the ratio H divided by D. This table is the recommended values of external pressure coefficients for vertical walls of rectangular plan buildings. So zone A, B, C, D, E, H divided by D, 5, 1, or 0.25. So A, CPE10 minus 1.2, or CPE1 minus 1.4. For B, minus 0.8, C, minus 0.5. You can choose. It depends on this ratio. So A, B, C, D, E, D and E, and A, B, C. For the roof, that depends on the type. Flat roofs, the angle minus 5 and 5, the shape F, G, F, H, I. D and B, direction of wind, E divided by 4. and E is B or 2H, whichever is smaller. So zone F, G, H, I. Monopitch roofs. The shape, low eave and high eave, F, G, F, H. And this table, zone for wind direction, angle is 0 and angle is 180 and angle is 90. Depends on the angle and zone. 5, 15, 30, 45, 60 and 75. For dual pitch roofs, this shape, the shape of the warehouse, upwind face, downwind face, upwind face, F, G, F, H, J, I, downwind face, upwind face, E divided by 4, angle is 0, so X, wind X, E divided by 10 and E divided by 10 here, wind direction, angle is 0, and E is the minimum of B or 2H. The angle is 90, so WY, direction Y, F, G, G, F, H, H, I. And this is the table, zone for wind direction, angle is 0, so for X direction, that depends, and the angle alpha, minus 45, minus 30, 275. Okay, F, G, H, I, G, CPE 10, CPE 1. We can choose CPE 10. So for example, 15 minus 0.9, minus 0.8, minus 0.3. And for angle 90, F, G, H, I.